All-Star Weekend is over, and it's time for the second half of the NBA season. Patrick and I are going to be ranking our top contenders today. Let's get into foul trouble.
Okay, here's where it gets real. It gets really, really real right now.
It gets super real. Yeah, so I kind of like always think these are going to be the most fun episodes. We're like, let's go rank the teams. And then like I rank like my top 2, my top 3, and I'm like, how do I actually put an order for some of these teams? Like, how do I actually, how do I delineate between the Suns and the Knicks? Like, how do I parse between which of those teams is better?
Yeah, I feel like part of it we were talking about comes down to like who would win in a playoff series, which for like Suns and Knicks, so hard to say because we don't get to see them play against each other. I still do feel like there's this weird like, I don't know, line of demarcation of like Eastern teams and Western teams. They like play so different. Also, something I found myself thinking about a lot is like, if I'm ranking these teams in terms of championship equity, it's a lot easier to come out of the East and win the championship than come out of the West that is just like an absolute crapshoot and win the championship. So I definitely did use that, like weighed that a little bit in times where I had tiebreakers. I don't know. What else did you struggle with this exercise?
I struggled with my number 11 team, which I just seeing the number 11 next to them, it doesn't feel right. I feel like they should be higher. But you know what? Let's get into it. We kind of both went for 10, but we both had the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers right outside the cusp. For the Heat, they're kind of an honorable mention. They've been to the ECF 2 years ago, the finals last year.
It's just the Jimmy Butler tax of the podcast.
Yeah.
We have to say the Heat here.
The Heat, you just never know with the Heat. They kind of are in their really mid-season lull for the last month, so I feel like we're kind of seeing the worst of them right now, which is really tampering. But let's see if they can get it together. The Lakers are really starting to get it together. I think
definitely more than earlier in this season. They had that huge dip from the in-season tournament until about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, my one fun Lakers stat though is they take a ton of shots at the rim. They get fouled all the time, and they don't allow any shots at the rim. So the kind of template for like last year's run is still in place for this year. So like, can they get it together? Can Vanderbilt come back? Maybe this team is poised to make another like low-seeded run.
Yeah, and my worries for the Lakers is one, like you said, with their shot profile, they don't shoot threes, which is really, really tough. Like, you've got to get to a certain amount of just getting threes up. I think Spencer Dinwiddie will help that a little bit. But then the other side of it is like, I don't love their roster construction. I think Spencer Dinwiddie is like just another version of D'Angelo Russell, another version of Austin Reeves. Like they all live on some like spectrum. And at the end of the day, those guys are taking the ball away from LeBron. LeBron is 100 million years old. You should be taking the ball away from LeBron. Their coach has been awful. Yeah. Like in something like this, we've got to take that into account. When we were talking about the Lakers in other episodes, it's like, oh, just like do this. You'll be so much more effective. But you know what? When I'm looking at you from a championship lens, your coach is your coach. You're not firing Darvin Ham at this point. So I'm going to take off a couple points for you. So yeah, I was right there. I feel like you could argue. How high do you think you could argue the Lakers being up on your list? Like,
ooh, I think I could feasibly have them as high as 5.
Yeah, I don't know if I go there, but I think definitely 7. In that range, I agree with you.
Now, I could have them as high as 5. I currently have them 12. So yeah, I don't want to make it seem like I'm like all in on them. Now,
you have them 12. You have them. Oh, okay. You have them 12. You have them 12.
So a little bit of bookkeeping. One team Patrick decided not to rank was the Sixers because of Embiid's injury. I'll just get out of the way. I had the Sixers at 9 in this weird, like, I think Embiid will come back. And if he does, he's not going to be the same player he was the first half of the season. So I guess you want to do a little bit of Sixers? I guess this is the one stat.
Yeah, whatever you have for the Sixers.
If Embiid never got hurt, I think I'd have the Sixers as high as 3.
Yeah, I'm probably around there too.
today we're going to go over a lot of lineups. And a lot of these lineups for a lot of these contenders are like plus 15 per 100 on a ton of possessions. So like big sample sets. Maxey, Melton, Batum, Harris, Embiid was plus 33.3 on over 460 possessions. So not the same sample size as some of these other teams, but that's because Embiid got hurt.
Just sizzling.
Yeah, so if Embiid is able to come back, with like 10 games left, can he get his conditioning back up? If that's the case, can this team re-gel? Because they're going to have to reincorporate Embiid. Embiid is one of these players that is not easily incorporatable. So that's why I have them all the way in the back. But yeah, I mean, if they're a low seed and they get anyone but the Celtics in the first round, like I'd be kind of upset if I was one of those teams.
Yeah, I would definitely be upset. Even if they don't have Embiid, they've still got the Nick Nurse aspect.
Yeah,
like, I'm a big believer. Like they could make what should be a 5-game series into a 7-game series.
I don't agree with that. They've
opinion.
been very bad since Embiid is out, but they're not even on your list. So should we?
They're
get
not
to
on my list.
Your number 10.
My number 10 team is I feel a little bad putting them at 10 because they have been so good recently, but I've got the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay, so in a world where the Sixers don't exist, see now I feel like I should just renumber my list, but effectively I have the Cavs at 10 as well.
Okay, yeah. So 36 and 17. Ever since they had like their injury scare the same day they announced Darius Garland and Evan Mobley were out, I feel like a lot of people just wrote them off. And then I feel like from that point on, they just never lost another game. Right now, they are second in the league in defensive rating and 16th in the league in offensive rating. Just like I think they've really found out how to play with a lot of size. Jared Allen has taken a step forward. Donovan Mitchell has been an absolute superstar this year, who I think should be squarely in the middle of the MVP conversation. Since January 1st, they have a 14.5 net rating, which is almost 5 points above the Celtics for the best net rating of any team. I mean, this is just, they're a very, very talented group, but I still have the same worries that arose after I saw what happened to them last season against the Knicks in the playoffs.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like Mitchell has just been unbelievable this year. I was doing some film study for another team and they were playing the Cavs, and it's like Mitchell can beat you pulling up from 3. He's just such a dynamic driver. He's got this like kind of crazy like half hook, half floater game going this year where he kind of just scoops the ball in from like 6-7 feet away, and it doesn't seem to ever miss. And it's like his ability to get space with his speed is just unreal. And like I know the backcourt is undersized with him and Garland, but like Mobley and Allen are both such like quick leapers, quick agile bigs. They're not like stiff bigs, that it's really kind of like it kind of like alleviates the backcourt size like kind of issue they have. And like I know part of me is like, this is different than last year. They went through last year. They added Max Strus, who I think we all like more, and like a playoff tested role, the guy who's not going to back down from anything, because it kind of felt like this team backed down a little bit against the Knicks last year. Mm-hmm. So I do think this team has learned from last year, but I guess my worry, and I think the same reason you have them at number 10, is like right now they're 9-1 in their last 10. We've talked a million times in this podcast, like, well, this team's 9-1 in the last 10. And then it's like, what happens in the next 10?
Yeah.
Things even out a little bit. So assuming they cool off a bit, they start playing more like 6-4 stretches, 7-3 stretches. They went 51-31 last year. They're probably going to go around 52, 53, 54, and whatever this year. So they're going to be kind of a similar team. Because I think last year we tend to forget this team was so good in the regular season last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the difference is this year they've really learned like, okay, Mitchell's the guy. Mitchell is the guy.
Not only that, they've learned Mitchell is the guy, but they've learned that Mitchell is a point guard, which is even more exacerbates the overlap of him and Garland. And I think we've also learned that Evan Mobley is not going to be a shooter, which even more exacerbates the overlap of Allen and Mobley. And then you've kind of got a mini version of this like offense for defense split of Okoro and Strus. Okoro has been amazing this year defensively, but he's given you nothing on offense. So JB Bickerstaff, who I don't love the fact that he's the guy making these decisions, has to constantly make these Sophie's choices of like offense for defense. It's just like you really, I could see them getting far in the playoffs, but you're just going to have to hit the right button every single time. And it's very difficult to do that effectively.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of high on the overlap of Garland and Mitchell just because I think Garland is a very unselfish player. I like his ability to space the floor. I like that Mitchell, too, can kind of play off. I like that both of them are good on-ball, off-ball players. I think, like, the real overlap is the size. Like, you kind of just wish one of them was a little taller, maybe a little better at defense.
The ineffective defense.
I think offensively, I do like the pairing. I guess I think in the playoffs, the spacing is going to become an issue again with the double bigs. You know, what is nice, though, for them is if they do want to space it out and start playing some more guys who, you know, maybe some, like, Dean Wades who can kind of shoot but can't really do much else. It's like, I guess it's like their players are very Laker-y in a way where it's like you're either good at offense or good at defense. But I kind of like in a sense that the Cavs can always at least have one springy big on the floor to bevy the defense. And I guess put shooting and around. I don't know. It's tough. I think this team, you're right. I think
the defense is the tough thing. The defense is the tough thing. Because I think in regular season basketball, it's a lot easier to play with two non-shooting bigs. And, like, who's guarding Jalen Brunson for them?
Yeah.
Like, you don't really feel great about anyone in their traditional starting lineup. And then you put a Okoro in there who you feel good about him guarding that position. But then you've got three non-shooters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like talking myself into the Cavs as I have them as my bottom-ranked team.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just think this team needs to find some way to alleviate the spacing issue, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think super high floor, but not quite as high of a ceiling. Who do you have? So you had Sixers at 9?
Yeah.
Who do you have?
Effectively have it.
Who do you have at 9-8?
I had the Phoenix Suns.
Okay.
And a lot of it is I still think this team's way too reliant on mid-range jump shots. The Suns are one of these teams. There's actually almost all of these teams now from the Suns downward where you just go look at their most played lineups and it's like the big three Suns lineup is killing everybody. And it's just like a lot of these Suns lineups or like the Durant, Booker, Gordon lineups are killing everybody. But I'm a little worried about Nurkic holding up the entire season. I think Eubanks and the backup bigs are going to be kind of a problem come playoff time for the Suns. And again, I still don't love the shot diet. It was tough to parse between the Suns and the Thunder for me, but I just feel like the Thunder have shown me a little bit more here in the regular season. So how do you feel about the Suns now?
So I've got the Suns at 7.
Okay, so pretty close.
Which is it's pretty close. I had Suns, Mavs, Thunder. I was really juggling. But I did end up putting the Suns above the other two teams. One, because like you touched on it a little bit. Like going into the season, everyone was saying the Suns had the opportunity to be one of the most devastating offenses that we've ever seen. And when the Suns' big three has been on the floor, we have seen nothing but that. They have an 129 offensive rating, which of lineups with at least 500 possessions, which isn't huge, but it's not super small. They are just like a country mile in front of any other offense. They have been super devastating. Devin Booker, I cannot say enough about what he's done this season. I think he's stepped into that point guard role better than I think anyone really could have ever imagined. There's definitely positionally, they play a lot of guards and they're asking them to defend up a lot of the time, which is where you get worried. Like it's really tough to survive in that way. But with all of that said, since the new year has turned, this has been a top 10 defensive rating team. They have the 6th best defensive rating in 2024. 8th best offensive rating, and that kind of fluctuates. I think they're still figuring that out a little bit, but top 10 on both sides of the ball is like where you want to be. And then, dude, I mean, I don't know if you've watched any of the Royce O'Neal minutes, but Royce O'Neal has been absolutely like liquid.
In how many
nitrogen
games though?
in like 4 games, but he fits. He fits so well with this team. The differential and the net ratings when he's been on the floor for them is just like so absurd. It does. You don't even need to bring it up. Like 87 defensive rating and 126 offensive rating, like 100 percentile all around. Like he is just such a strong guy and a big guy. And what I love about his addition is in the last probably month or so, the Suns have discovered just how devastating they can be with KD at the 5. And Royce O'Neal unlocks that lineup. He makes it so that they can play that lineup in a real way where they're not asking Grayson Allen to guard 4s, and they can still just really like fire off 3s and hit them at a pretty, like he's getting the most open 3s of his life. Devin and Kevin have been amazing this year. I just think their ceiling is super, super high. And I mean, I just can't stop thinking about what they looked like last year with a much worse team in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Suns are one of these teams that's really, really difficult. It's kind of like how I said the Lakers, I could have them as high as, 4 or 5, but as low as like 13. And the Suns are one of these teams where it's like, I guess I could have the Suns as low as like 12, but I probably could have them as high as like 3 on my rankings because, like, yeah, when they're healthy and they're humming, like, it's an unstoppable offense because almost they have 3 players that when they touch the ball, everyone on the defense almost has to shade toward them, and it causes a ton of issues for the other team. Booker is just, the shot making is ridiculous. The worry for me with Durant has kind of always been the last few years is like he really kind of struggles to get to the rim in the playoffs a little bit more, but like this year his rim numbers are finally ticking back up in this heavy spacing environment, so we're seeing a lot better version of KD than we've seen in 2 years. I guess with the Suns, it really does come down to like, can Beal stay healthy for an extended stretch? Can Nurkic hold up physically and not wear down too much? Because I think the thing with Beal is like, it seems like he's one of those guys that it's almost Anthony Davis-like, where it's not like this reoccurring knee. It's like, he got hit in the eye today.
I know. He has a broken nose now.
Oh, man. Someone pulled his hair too hard. His scalp ripped in half. Like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like Beal's just getting these one-off injuries over. But that's the thing. Sometimes players are just the type of guys. And that's the thing with Anthony Davis.
Well, he goes super hard. That's the thing. And I think it's the same thing with the AD.
AD is like, AD's been super healthy for like a year and a half now because he hasn't had a freak thing happen. But a freak thing can happen to any player in any game. And Beal just seems to have that happen to him. So it's like, can Beal keep it together?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. And so many of these go down to can they stay healthy? The one last thing that I want to say about the Suns is the red flag of like the fourth quarter has still been such a mess
and
all season.
Defending point guards
and defending point. Yeah. I mean, just defending in general,
but especially defending point guards. And I think that's the problem is they've unlocked this KD at the 5 lineup, and I think that lineup might not work as well in the playoffs.
Yeah,
especially against some of these bigger Western teams.
The trade-off is like they're scoring like 129 points per 100 possessions in the KD at the 5 lineup, so they're willing to like give up 120 points as well. So I don't know if that's the best strategy, but I mean, hey, anytime where you're +9, you're doing all right. Okay, so that was your 9, and my 9 was the Thunder.
Okay, so my 8 is the Thunder.
Okay, great.
Look at us. Yeah, we're a lot more lockstep than I thought.
We're right there. There's only a certain amount of ways that you can go about this.
So the Thunder are young, which I think is like a big thing. But here's the catch with the Thunder's youth. Usually young teams rely a lot on transition, right? The Thunder don't have a lot of characteristics of a young team. They're actually 3rd in half-court play percentage. So this team is already really good in the half-court. SGA is probably the league's best isolation player right now. He's averaging 1.19 points per isolation. What I like about this is that in the half court, the game becomes much more half court heavy. Over the last couple seasons, usually the percentage of half court plays goes up by like 1 or 2. So effectively per game, you're getting like a couple more half court possessions and a couple less transition possessions. And like the best half court offense in the NBA right now is averaging like 106, 107 points per possession. So a Shea ISO is averaging 119 points per possession. So like the Thunder are going to have that any play they want it. The problem for the Thunder, I think, is Shea is much more of a read and react type of passer. He's more of a like, he's not processing the passing game at the same speed as like a Doncic. So I think the doubles for Shea are going to be a little bit easier for playoff level defenses to double recover onto the shooters. So I don't think like his teams are just going to let him have it, because I think he's going to be able to sustain that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Yeah, and to point out one thing that was a little bit of a red flag is like OKC is such an amazing team when it comes to generating drives. They're in the 99th percentile of drives per game. But on the other side of that, they're also in the 0th percentile in terms of fouls drawn per drive. And I think that number will only dry up even more once you get into a tightened playoff setting. And from that place, it goes to like, are we going to hit our spot up threes on the outside? Which like maybe, but like when you start relying on jump shooting more to replace something like easy foul shots and stuff like that, it throws your math off a little bit. I think Shea can be the best guy in almost any series that he's in. But the experience is a real thing.
And I think another thing that's really interesting when you talk about like them leading the NBA in drives per game is they're still only 19th in shots at the rim.
Yeah.
Which is like they're driving it a lot, but they're not getting to the rim in any other facet of the game. That's another problem. Like they're not getting interior passes to the rim. They don't have any sort of post-up presence, which I know is like kind of dead in the regular season, but we've seen in the playoffs really important the last couple of years. They're 18th in 3-point percentage. This team does take a lot of mids, which I don't love. And this is where I'm like kind of really low on the Thunder is they give up the second most offensive rebounds percentage-wise, and they're like bottom 3 in offensive rebounding possession. So this team is giving up more easy looks and getting less themselves. And I think against like a Minnesota, a Denver, or even like a Lakers, if they were to match up with them in the first round, like that's going to be a problem when like a guy is just owning the boards all series against you.
Absolutely. And like when you can't control the boards, the other side of that is like when you start going against the super small teams like a Clippers, like a Suns, like a Warriors, you allow those teams to put like super small lineups and play those effectively against you because you're not punishing them on the offensive glass. So in the same way that I would be worried if I was a Thunder fan playing against the Lakers, I would be just as worried playing against like a team like the Warriors because they can get away with just having Draymond out there as their only 5-man. Or the Clippers, you can get away with, I mean, I would be comfortable with like Kawhi guarding Chet because you just have that strength factor.
But even a team like the Clippers, though, this is where I'm scared for the Thunder. A team like the Clippers can go, we're just going to put Plumlee out there, and he's probably going to beat Chet on the boards a lot.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I think that's where it's scary is a lot of these teams can be like, here's our above average center, and he's going to do a really good job rebounding this series.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel great with Nurkic rebounding against Chet.
And I don't want to downplay Chet. Chet is giving the Thunder so much on offense, and Chet has been a really good defensive player, right? Like blocking drives and all that, but this is really more about rebounding than Chet's actual defensive ability because I think Chet's proved himself to be a nice defensive anchor for this team, but I just think when it comes down to close playoff games, if you're losing the offensive boards by like 10 a game, like that's tough to overcome, even if you're outplaying the other team offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But they also have amazing perimeter defensive personnel. Like, I mean, Jalen Williams is a real star on both ends of the ball at this point. Lou Dort, we know what Lou Dort can do. Maybe a little undersized against certain matchups, but he's just a meatball that like you cannot displace at all. Shea's had by far the best season of his career on the defensive end. So there is upside on that end as well.
Because I'm thinking back to last year's Thunder. Because Shea was awesome last year. But last year, did they play the Timberwolves in that playing game?
OKC?
Yeah. Who did they play? They played...
No, wasn't it the Lakers?
Yeah.
No, they didn't play the Lakers last year. The Lakers beat you guys, the Timberwolves,
Oh, in the first round.
in the play-in.
Oh, right.
Who did they play?
Regardless, last year,
I'll look it
the
up.
team they were playing just like kind of denied Shea the ball, played some like doubling on Shea, and like just made the ball get out of Shea's hands. And like haven't seen a lot out in the regular season. I'm a little worried about like what it looks like when other teams are like, we're just gonna force the ball out of Shea's hands a little bit more, just because he's not this like pick and roll maestro level kind of guy, like, you know, LeBron James type. And I think that's what worries me is I think the Thunder's offense is going to take a little bit of a step back with playoff defenses. And yeah, I just think the size is going to be an issue. Like we saw them get absolutely clobbered by the new Dallas size. And like, that's not a team that has some great collection of centers right now.
No, it is not. I don't know. This is too hard to Google, but yeah, they were in the play-in last year. Who did they play the
Here, I'm pulling it up.
Warriors?
I'm pulling it up.
Who was the 2 seed last year?
It was the Timberwolves. It was the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves beat them 120-95 in the play-in.
There we go.
Yeah.
They beat who?
They beat the Pelicans, and then the Timberwolves beat the Thunder.
Right.
And in that game, what I remember was when it got
okay.
close, like toward the end, or it wasn't close, it was 95-120. But what I remember from that game was like, they were just like, hey, Shea, we're just going to like play heavy ball denial, and like you guys can go play through somebody else. Mm-hmm. And like, I think Shea's a better player now. He's going to come get the ball more, be a lot more aggressive. Shea's much more of an alpha, I think, as he's gotten older in his career. But that just kind of always has stuck with me.
It reminds me of how teams schemed against Devin Booker the last 2 years.
Yeah, just like...
when you have to expend that much energy just to get the ball, you're already starting from a deficit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I had the Thunder at 8.
Okay, and then I had the Mavs at 8.
Okay, the Mavs. I'm really excited about the Mavs.
Hey, this is a place of self-growth for me. Both preseason, I had the Mavs nowhere near the top 10 of contenders, and I think they've played themselves into this range.
I think right now the standings make it seem like the Mavs are a goofy pick. They're one game back from 5. Mm-hmm. If they beat the Suns tonight, they're literally 5. Now, this is what really excites me about the Mavs, because I've been watching them a lot more lately. The Irving-Doncic pairing is starting to really, really, really gel, and it's gelling in a way that I didn't expect, where they're getting a ton of like Kyrie running toward the rim and Luka finding him, and then the Kyrie being in that like 8-foot, 10-foot like distance range where it's like he's gonna score. And Kyrie's become a much better passer throughout his career. This is what's crazy. Every time they run a pick and roll, the other teams are like, we're doubling Luka off the pick and roll. We are not going to let him do that. Why is that? Luka's averaging 1.1 points per ISO. He's averaging 1.07 points per pick and roll ball handler. He's averaging 1.02 points per post up. This guy is second all time in playoff points per game behind Michael Jordan. I know we talked about Shea's isolation game, and statistically it's a little bit more potent this year than Doncic, but man, Luka has the full package. You cannot double him. And with Gafford now, like, they're not going to have any minutes where there's like Powell out there or Kleber out there. Like, it's going to be 48 minutes of a somewhat competent big who can play defense. Mm-hmm. And I think like combining that with Irving and Doncic's pick and roll, like this team is really hard to stop offensively, and they're really going to be average enough on defense that crazy unstoppable offense that'll transfer to the postseason. Like, I think this team's really dangerous.
I think they're really dangerous in the fact that they have Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I have some reservations about... I really want to see Gafford and Lively on defense in the playoffs when teams can scheme against them. At the end of the day, 2 centers that do not shoot the ball at all. They have great rim gravity, but you never know. With rim running bigs, you got to see it in the playoffs a little bit. You got to see what teams try to do with them. You got to see how teams bring them out. And to be honest, I'm a little, I'm just balancing you out. I am high on the Mavs. I promise I am high on the Mavs. Fuck the Mavs. I am high on the Mavs. The place where I'm very worried about the Mavs is their shooting. I want to run down so PJ Washington, we're replacing Grant Williams with PJ Washington. Obviously, culturally, not a fit at all, Grant Williams. Grant Williams is a guy that you have to guard as a three-point shooter, and I am just not quite sure PJ Washington is. He's in the 10th percentile in three-point shot making. He's in the 10th percentile of three-point catch and shooting. He has been really, really bad thus far with the Mavs. Super small sample size in terms of his three-point shooting. He's shooting like 16%. And so with that, maybe he bounces back. I don't know. I would imagine it would fall somewhere in the middle, closer to a 30% shooter than a 40% shooter. Teams will get super cutthroat when you've got a shooter like that on the court. And then you're pairing that with Gafford, who doesn't shoot at all, Lively, who doesn't shoot at all, Kleber, who's a huge question mark, shooting 35% from three. Derek Jones Jr., who teams are going to let him shoot until his fingers start to bleed. He's shooting 34%, started off really, really hot from three this season. And then you've got Exum, who has had an amazing shooting year this year, shooting like 44% from three. I'm not feeling great if I'm a Mavs fan and I'm relying on catch and shoot threes from him. It reminds me of the Suns last year, where they're going to go as far as Luka and Kyrie can shoot them in the playoffs.
So it's weird. I'm kind of the other way. I think watching this team, because I've watched every game since the trade, the way teams respect the spacing, and you're right, it'll change in the playoffs. Teams like this team is crazy spaced out, and it's part of why they're kind of unguardable, is because teams feel like they have to double Luka, and these bigs are just wide open. And the thing with PJ from Washington, washing him, not from Washington.
Gafford's from Washington.
He's sneakily not a bad passer. He's actually pretty good at big-to-big passing when he catches it on the roll. He's not like a Draymond. He's not dissecting a defense like that, but he's good at making basic passes.
Really effective from the floater range. Like, he does have offense to his game.
And one thing that is nice is he drives. And I think that's the thing. He doesn't really touch the ball a lot. So it's like, I haven't seen a ton of him because they don't really give him the ball much. Like, to be honest, he is kind of like a stand there guy. But that's the thing, is like, we've seen this Mavs heliocentric offense just work. And I think this is going to be the best version of it, because Josh Green's shooting 41% from three. Hardaway's a guy you can't leave open. Hardy's a really good shooter. And I think you're going to see. I don't
think Hardy's getting any minutes in the playoffs, to be honest.
Oh, I think he will.
In what minutes is he taking away from Luka, Kyrie, Tim Hardaway Jr.?
Because Luka and Kyrie aren't playing 48, and Tim plays the three a lot of this team.
Luka's going to play like 42.
So you'll see Hardy, Doncic lineups.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'll hear it, but you've also got Green that's like playing a little bit of 2-3 there. I just feel like there's a lot of minutes to give out.
I think you're going to see this team play a lot of lineups that'll be like Doncic, Hardy, Hardaway, Green, Lively. You won't see a lot of, like, I don't think you'll see any big pairing lineups that much other than PJ with one of the two bigs. Like, you'll never see Kleber out there. I don't think Powell will play in the playoffs. Like,
see, but that gets into my whole thing. Their roster, like, doesn't fit together.
I just don't agree. I think it really does. Like, that's why I'm so high on this team.
Like, so who's their top 8?
Doncic, Irving, Green, Hardaway, Washington, Gafford, Lively, and Hardy.
See, I don't know.
I really like that 8-man group. Like, I think it fits like a glove.
I just feel like they don't have like perimeter defense.
So that's the thing. This is not going to be a high-level defense, but as a half-court offense, I think this is, outside of Denver, maybe the best half-court offense in the West.
Whoa.
Just how do you...
The Clippers exist.
The Clippers exist, but like, unlike a lot of... Like, Kawhi is awesome, but Doncic is literally like the best playoff scorer we've seen since Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I hear you, dude. I hear you,
And he's
dude.
also a way better passer than all these other ball handlers. Like, he's kind of put himself in this position where, as in the half court, he's like just unstoppable. Like, I don't really see what
You
like,
can load up on him, though, because of the lack of shooting around the rest of the roster.
but you can't though, because I don't think they have a lack of shooting. Because in that top 8, all those guys are good shooters.
That's not true.
Hardy's a great shooter. Green's a good shooter. Hardaway's a good shooter.
Yeah, but
Irving's a good shooter.
Lively doesn't shoot. You don't think Kleber's going to get any minutes?
Cleveland's not that good anymore.
I know, but they need the size. This is a super, super small team.
But I think the other
think they're
thing
gonna get
you're
hunted
underrating
left
that
and right.
watching their games, like teams are really like picking their poison with this team because like a lot of the times like Irving springs free and like that's the other thing. Irving is so good.
Irving's awesome. Yeah.
And like they're getting really like Doncic is getting really good at getting Irving the ball heading toward the hoop. And like Kyrie's playing way less isolation than he ever has. He's playing way more like getting the ball off cuts, getting the ball in space. Like, I don't know. Against the Spurs, it's just like the way teams guard them is they're terrified of the Mavs shooters.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like in a playoff setting when you can really think about what you want to give a team, what you don't want to give a team, the Mavs become a little bit more simple to guard than like your random game against the Spurs. I mean, I think they have a clear ceiling to get to an NBA Finals even. I just have reservations and there's a few teams that I would definitely pick over them.
Oh, yeah. I
in
mean,
the
I have
West.
them 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have them 8. I just, yeah, I don't know. I think they're schemable, but they have the guy that can be the best player in any series. Like, I don't know what you're doing with Luka, but I don't know. We've seen time and time again in this era of the NBA, it doesn't matter as much as it has in past generations if you have the best guy, just because the league is so
deep.
talented and so deep. And I worry about them playing against deeper teams as well.
So who do you have at 7?
So I had the Suns at 7.
Okay, so I have the Knicks.
Okay, cool. I have the Knicks at 6.
Okay, so are the Knicks injuries maybe what's going to derail this team? There's like there's like room for optimism and room for pessimism.
so many injuries.
OG Anunoby's been out for a while. He's supposed to be coming back soonish.
Who knows?
Who knows? So Julius Randle was supposed to be out like a month and a half with a separated shoulder. Now it's looking like he might need surgery. So like, that's not good. The one good news is Mitchell Robinson was supposed to be out the whole year. He supposedly might be coming back. So the Knicks' pathway to victory is really like Brunson kind of gives this team a high floor with his scoring ability. They're going to be a crazy defense, and they allow no offensive rebounds, and they get the most offensive rebounds. And like, I think if you're the Knicks, like normally you're like, oh my God, Joel Embiid came back, and like we have to play him in the first round. But I think it's more like you're the Knicks, and you're like, dude, if there's one team Joel Embiid doesn't want to play right now, it's us who's going to beat the living shit out of him every single game, and he's not playing, healthy. Like, I think this team, like, if they can get Randall back, they can get Mitch Rob back, if they can get OG back, like, I really think this is a team that can go to the finals and play. Like, I think it's tough because the Knicks are a new archetype of team that we haven't seen win the finals since like the 04 Pistons. So it's like, because we've never seen a team in this build win in this era, we don't think it can happen. But like, teams win with new archetype of team building, every few years. And I think like the Knicks, if they're healthy, are just going to be so difficult to score on. And I think they're really going to like impose their like size, their grit on the teams. And like, even a team like the Celtics, I would want to play the Knicks.
Oh, no. I would not want to play the Knicks at all if I was the Celtics. But yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head. This is like maybe the deepest team in the NBA with really, really quality personnel for both sides of the ball. I love that. I've talked about it before. What I really, really love about the Knicks is they're a team that like it just sounds like such a slog from any position to play against the Knicks. I love the fact that they have more on-ball scoring now after the OG trade. that was a little bit of a place of weakness for them. And I think adding Burks, adding Bogdanovich completely changes that. I mean, Randall has been really, really great for 99% of the season for them. Can he get back? Can he be the same imposing force that he's been? I love that his role is simplified. But yeah, I mean, there's almost not that much to say about them
because we don't know
right
the health.
now. Because we don't know their health, and we haven't seen their team together.
If you told me they were super healthy, Patrick, I would probably have them ahead of one of the other two Eastern teams I have listed, but at the moment I can't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dying to see what their team looks like, because the whole Knicks renaissance this year that everybody's been getting so hyped about, the entire time they haven't been a full team. It's crazy. That's why it was so impressive, because they were so depleted by injuries for that whole time. Once they're a full team, you know, it is a little difficult to fit talent together like that. And maybe it'll click like a glove. You know, Tibbs is such a great coach. Seems like he really has the locker room with him right now. It might work gangbusters right off the bat, but it's just something that you've got to see. So, I mean, I agree that their ceiling is super high. It's a team that I definitely wouldn't want to play in the East. And I have them ranked at 6 because it's a little bit easier in the East.
It's a bit easier in the East.
The East is kind of in flux right now. There's there's red flags all over the place. You could get an easy first round matchup in the East, whereas I think all of the first round matchups in the West are going to be gunfights.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about the Knicks. Love watching them.
Yeah.
Hoping
get
that
healthy.
they get healthy.
You and the Sixers, just get healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess so. So where are we at now? So we've covered all of my teams up to 5 now.
Me too.
Okay, so my number 5 team is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Me too.
Wow, I'm surprised how lockstep we're in.
The group think is so real.
It's crazy because Patrick and I do no consulting with each other in between doing this.
We even before the show, we're like, oh, I can't give you any hints to what I'm doing, and we have the same list essentially.
So the Bucks are the weirdest team in the NBA because if you go look at their lineup data, pretty much every lineup they have that plays big minutes is outscoring teams by like over 10 points per 100 possessions. So it makes no sense that this team is 3-7 in their last 10. It makes no sense to me that the narrative all year is.
Let me tell you why it makes sense that they're 3-7 in their last 10. They fired their freaking coach 10 games ago,
who was not good,
who was not great, but that's a really difficult thing to do.
I don't like everything Rivers. I don't think I've liked a single thing Doc Rivers has said. Like, also, why are you hiring me? Is a weird question to ask from a guy who you want to right the ship and take a championship level team. Lillard and Giannis 2-man lineups are all plus 10. All of the Bucks' most played lineups are super dominant. I think the big worry for this team is like the general weirdness around everything. But if we want to get into more objective things, like Middleton's missing a ton of games. Middleton's averaging about 15 points a game. Malik Beasley is like playing big minutes on this team. Like, but Pat Connaughton's been really good for them in Middleton's place. And like, part of me wonders if Middleton matters that much when you've inserted Damian Lillard, who's supercharged this offense to heights that the Bucks have never been to before. Like, Patrick, is there a case that this is the best Giannis Bucks team?
I think at the end of the season, they could be. They're the 5th best offensive rated team in the league this year, and they've been completely steeped in chaos the entire season. Giannis, like, can we just talk about the box numbers for Giannis? 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists a game this season. And his efficiency is like absolutely insane. Just in general, I am buying Buck stock right now. I am dying to buy Buck stock.
I'm kind of like, all right, like, you know, they could maybe could get the 2, probably end up at 3.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. They haven't been good against Cleveland this year, but like, I don't know, man. I just kind of like Dame against that backcourt. I like Giannis against any big, to be honest.
The fact of I think they've been a little bit better on defense ever since Doc took over. They've had this break now. I don't think it's if I told you by the end of the season, like between now and the end of the season, the Bucks had the 5th best defensive rating in the league. Would you be shocked?
No,
because I wouldn't be shocked.
Would you be
all.
shocked also if someone told you, okay, the Bucks are 35-21. They finished the year like 55-26, or it's like
No.
if I don't know, like that's the thing. I'm not like it's like this team is embroiled in chaos. They're 35-21.
Absolutely.
It's like
and when we've seen, like, I'm going to get a little morning jock shock on you, but when we've seen Giannis healthy in the playoffs the last 3 years, he has looked like the best player in the entire world on both ends of the floor. You know, there's no, they're kind of a similar team to the Mavs in a way that they're super reliant on 2 stars. The rest of the guys around them are like a pretty good fit. There's some talent there, but also there's a lot of question marks. But at the end of the day, you're like Dame and Giannis raise your offensive ceiling to great heights, but you have Giannis, who is potentially a top 10 player all time. And what he can do to your defense is just as real. I would not want to play Giannis.
So we're both very
all.
high on the Bucks. Yeah, I just this is just a team that I'm like, I don't know, man, because I feel like the thing with the Bucks the last couple of years in the playoffs, like the offense falls apart. Even the year they won the championship, like the offense just falls apart with Drew Holiday, and it's like this team is so good on offense because of Damian
Absolutely.
Lillard. Like, and I just think the defense is going to keep tricking up, and it's kind of like the Mavs, where it's like, I don't know if you're going to be top 10 on defense, but if you get to like 15.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about their starting lineup. Their starting lineup is absolutely
It's
just
like plus 16,
crushing
right?
the team. Yeah, so there's a very few amount of lineups that have over 900 possessions together, and their starting lineup of Lillard, Beasley, Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez are one of those lineups. They have 1,137 possessions together, and they are plus 16. The next closest lineup with at least 900 possessions is plus 12.7. Like, it is so exceedingly difficult to have a net rating that positive for a lineup that is going to play an absurd amount of minutes together in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm high on the Bucks. I don't know. I think the chaos is going to maybe last throughout February, and I think March, April, it's going to come get together, because I think the one thing that's weird about the chaos of this team is like Giannis and Dame both seem like no bullshit guys.
Yeah.
And I feel like both of them are kind of like, wow, there's a lot of bullshit around us happening. But like, I know Giannis has said some weird things, but I think maybe sometimes things might get lost in translation. I think he just kind of says how things are, and I think a lot of times people are like, oh, Giannis is stirring the pot, and I don't really think he's intending to.
Well, I mean, I think he did stir the pot when he got his coach fired. Coach killer, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But he's happy now. He got his coach fired. That's all he wanted. And now, like, you can say what you will about Doc Rivers, but there's one thing that I can assure you, and it's that his players love him for some reason.
Not JJ Redick.
Not JJ Redick, but you know, you got Pat Bev, you got Danilo Gallinari. They're coming back. They're ex Doc Rivers players. Doc has hung around in this league because of his relationships with players, and I do believe in his ability to at least bring their locker room together to the point that it needs to be to get into the playoffs. And that's when you hand the baton to a guy like Giannis, to a guy like Damian Lillard. And it's like, look, your legacies are on the line. Both of you guys have so much to lose if you don't show up in these playoffs. Go, do your thing, be superstars, because that's who you guys are. And in the playoffs, I think we will see that. I would be surprised if they had another series like last year, but you know,
yeah, I like their ceiling a lot. Okay, number 4, I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves.
so do I.
Let's go.
You think that's a fair placement?
Number 4?
Yeah.
You guys both had him at 4?
We did.
Yeah. I mean, I of course would go higher, but you know, I'll take it.
There we go. There we
Top
go.
5. Let's
So it's
go.
weird because I'll spoil. I have the Clippers at 3.
So do I.
I like the Clippers
We have the
overall.
same top five.
I like the Clippers overall more than the Timberwolves, but I like Minnesota in that specific matchup.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Big
that's
versus
reasonable
small.
to say.
Yeah, I actually kind of think I'd pick the Wolves in that one, but against most other teams, I think I'd rather have the Clippers. But the Wolves, great size, amazing wing defense. I love that in any given series they can put Jaden and they can put Ant on the other team's like isometric guards and wings and be like, have fun.
Yeah.
Because that works. Like we saw that last year with the Lakers when they were like, okay, who's the best guy? Okay, Vanderbilt, just take care of him. Like that. And like when you have like Gobert, locking down the paint, you also have Cat giving a lot of spacing. Like this team has a lot of size. They're the second best net rating. They have the best defensive rating at 108.5. This is where it gets crazy. Their half court defense, again, we're going to see more half court possessions. They are 92 defensive rating in the half court. This team doesn't let you score.
No, this team is a defensive monster like we have not seen really in recent NBA history, at least from like a non-championship level team. I think it's so rare and it's so real. Like this, like defense like this doesn't just come around the corner and show up every year. And I think the Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert fit, that was such a question mark, especially on the defensive end. I think for the most part, they've figured it out. And in scenarios where they're getting hurt a little bit by it, one, Cat is so good on offense that he can make up for it a lot of the times, whatever points he's giving up from the wonky positional fit when it comes to guarding. But also, you can just take Gobert off the court and you've got an all-NBA talent center.
And you have one of the best backup bigs in Naz Reid, too.
Exactly. And then you can just plug Kyle Anderson there. And that's just like a more traditional lineup. Jaden McDaniels can guard 1 through 5, not 1 through 5, but 1 through 4 pretty comfortably against most teams, especially in the West where a lot of the teams are a little bit on the smaller side. The biggest question when it comes to the Timberwolves is decision-making on offense, maturity. I think Ant is a guy that we've seen in big games get a little tunnel vision-y, makes some very questionable decisions in terms of shot selection at certain points. And I think that's a real issue, but at least they have the insulation of their defense to protect them.
I think like if you're a Minnesota fan, like the thing that if you close your eyes and you're like, what's the scenario where we like lose in a horrible upset? It's like they draw the Lakers. The Lakers are getting a million foul calls, and Cat and Gobert are just losing their minds and like malfunctioning.
I think that's accurate. Yeah. I mean, that is essentially what happened in the last time that they faced each other in that play-in game. So it's very possible. But I mean, like you're saying, it's like Ant can sometimes play hero ball and it works, and sometimes he just completely...
Absolutely. And you can say the same thing about Cat.
Yeah.
The Cat's a guy that we've seen multiple instances now in his playoff career of he just doesn't have it. He's getting into really quick foul trouble.
Yeah. Hey.
what I do like about the Timberwolves, though, and like this is something that you could say you don't like, is like this. We're a month removed from Cat having the worst 63-point game in NBA history, where he's just chucking and the coach is calling out the team. But the Timberwolves are 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah.
If anything, like it seems like Ant is really taking on the leadership role, and he is really trying to bring up Cat. And I think Gobert's immature at times as well. Like, I kind of seems like this team like is learning. I think the whole season we've been waiting for the like Timberwolves are gonna regress a bit, and it's like they're still the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And I think like the maturity issues are still there, but I think this might be the turning point season where maybe they don't win the chip, but it's like, okay, going forward, like Cat and Ant, like this is a pairing that is going to be a top tier pairing for a long time.
I think the big key to helping Cat out was like taking the pressure off of him. And Ant does that in such an amazing way. Like Cat can just kind of step back and still average like 27 or whatever it is. but like not have to be the guy because he's not the guy and he never was the guy. Like,
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I do want to throw out a couple stats that do make me cringe at what their offense in the playoffs might be. This is a bottom 10 percentile team in terms of ISO fouls drawn, which there's going to be a lot of ISO ball because they're also not a great passing team. Top to bottom, they're in the bottom 10th percentile in terms of passing efficiency, potential assists per 100 passes. They're in the 11th percentile. So that just means really is they don't get easy points. They don't get points off assists, which are always easy, and they don't get points off of fouls when it comes to like ISO possessions, which there are going to be a lot of ISO possessions, especially when you've got Cat on the perimeter, especially when, you're not going to want the ball in Mike Conley's hands all that much when it comes to the playoffs. But I think the ceiling is sky high.
Yeah, I think what I like is like I'm looking at the standings, and it's really tough to say who they're likely going to get into play-in draw. But like, they get the Kings, they get the Pelicans, they get the Lakers. Like, I kind of like them in all of those matchups.
Oh, I 100% like them.
In round 2, they're going to play 4-5, so they could be playing like a Phoenix Suns, a Dallas Mavs. Like, kind of like them in those matchups too. But like, where it gets scary is like right now, Denver's the 4 seed.
Yeah.
That's where I'm a little scared.
That is rough.
We don't want that.
No. I want Jokic as far away from Rudy Gobert as possible.
But if you're a Minnesota fan, you guys arguably played them better than any of the other teams they played last year.
Yeah, that is arguable.
And
I would not make that argument, but that is arguable.
That was a thing that like Lakers players were saying at the end of last season. Like they were actually really scared to play the Wolves at the end. Do you guys remember that at all?
Was it that the Nuggets players? I
oh,
recall
yeah,
that
it was
the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets said that the Timberwolves were the hardest team they had to beat.
That was the hardest series that year.
They had, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I remember one team winning 2 games against the Nuggets and the other teams only winning 1. I remember the Heat only won 1 game against the Nuggets. The Timberwolves only won 1 game against
And that was
the
it.
Nuggets.
Those were all the teams.
The Lakers, no, they didn't win any games against the Nuggets. Okay, I'm being an asshole. But
Number 3,
number 3,
Clippers.
Clippers.
Yep.
We're right there.
So, I mean, my whole thing on the Clippers all year, and it's probably surprising to hear me put them at 3 because all year I've been kind of down on the Clippers. But again,
We finally got him, Clippers fans.
I'm still worried about Leonard's health. Just like we've seen this, man. Like he just seems to get hurt every year in the playoffs. And as good as these lineups are, and my God, Harden, man, George, Leonard, Zubac, plus 14.8. Harden, man, George, Leonard, Plumlee, plus 15.6. Like, and what's crazy is those 2 lineups sound the exact same. They have such different identities. The Zoo lineups are great on defense. The Zoo lineups are very shot making heavy. The Plumlee lineups are great on offense. The Plumlee lineups, they take a absurd amount of shots at the rim with the Plumlee lineup. Like,
He's a great passer.
I think the Plumlee lineup's better, even though it's more offensive slanted. Yeah, I don't know. And then
Yeah, I mean, with their perimeter defense, I don't need that lockdown presence in the paint.
so I like that you have 2 competent bigs. You have 48 minutes of competent
You
center
got 3.
play.
Yeah, I'm cool with playing Tice a couple 12 playoff minutes a game.
I'm not cool with that. If I'm the other teams, I'm salivating at the chance to attack
A lot of
Tice.
teams in the NBA would kill to have Daniel Tice as their backup 5.
I don't know.
And teams above them right now, I think, would.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I don't think Ty's going to play. But either way, I think we
they don't
both
have to play him at all.
1 through 4, they have Powell coming off the bench.
This is the best ISO scoring team we have literally ever seen in our entire God-fearing lives.
Yeah, and so I mean, the real question with the Clippers is health, and it's also Harden.
Well, the great thing about Harden is like the dude doesn't have to score at all.
So the thing is that we say that, but like you could argue, wouldn't that be the position of the point guard on the Clippers last year and 2 years ago and the year they lost to Denver? Like
That
everyone
they
needs to
didn't
be
have
able to
score.
do something. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think they didn't have to score, but it would have been very helpful.
Nice.
But those point guards also didn't have the bag. You know, they didn't have the ability to score in a way that James Harden does and James Harden can.
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw last season, James Harden, I think at this point in his career is a little miscast as a number 2 on a real championship team, but James Harden is a clear number 3 and is a number 3 with a real number 1 option in Kawhi Leonard, who is looking like the best player in the world once again.
Arguably 2 number 1 options.
Yeah, and Paul George, who, just like what you said, I mean, 2 years ago, Paul George was in the Western Conference Finals looking like a guy that could maybe go into the finals and win Finals MVP.
Without Leonard.
Without Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, no, I'm really, if the Clippers stay healthy, I'm really, really high on them. I think the one thing that worries me is like the Westbrook factor. So I think that like narrative is like Westbrook has just been absolutely amazing. The 3 most played Westbrook lineups are all negative.
No.
This team is not, Westbrook does not materially help this team from a like winning basketball. It's just in the data. Like the data says Westbrook is not helping them. So like, I don't know why this has to always be a big debate with Westbrook, but like, the spacing is going to hurt them in the playoffs. I don't think Westbrook's going to play a lot. Like, does that change the dynamic of the locker room at all? It seems like he's kind of weirdly the heart and soul of the team, despite not being the guy pushing them forward much.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers for Westbrook last season were absolutely god-awful, and he was a real positive presence in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But in the situation where that doesn't happen, you don't have to play him.
Yeah, that's true.
You just don't have to play him at all. And we've taken off points throughout this list for coaching. They
Tyler's
got
great.
The best coach in the league. Maybe pretty close. I mean, that maybe I'd put Spoelstra above him, but I don't know if I'd put anybody else. I don't know if I'd think about putting anybody else. I mean, this team just has everything that you could ever want for a championship contender, a team that will rise their level of play in the playoffs. I don't think they're very schemable. I don't know what you do other than pray that they miss shots.
The one thing I wish they did have is I wish one of these guys had somewhat of a bully ball game.
Yeah.
Because that's the
Kawhi
one.
can kind of do that.
Kawhi can kind of do that. But what I think I like about the Nuggets, the Bucks, the Mavs, the Lakers, a lot of these teams is they can just dump the ball down low. Because we talked about like with the Thunder, it's like, how do you lead the NBA in drives per game, but you're 19th in rim percentage? Like you got to get shots to the paint in other ways than just driving. And they don't take a ton of threes, either of their like super godly lineups, but that's just because like these mid-range shooters are just unreal. And I actually don't think 3-point shooting it's just not a problem for this team. I think they can adjust and take more threes.
99th percentile in terms of 3-point shooting talent, but I will say 6th percentile in terms of 3-point pull-up openness, which this is a team that likes to pull up a lot, and apparently they're pulling up on insanely hard shots.
Yeah, so I guess that's my thing with the Clippers, and it's kind of a reason, like, I might pick Minnesota against them if they were to match up, is I kind of just like the whole, like, all right, we're going to put Ant on Leonard, we're going to put Jaden on Paul, we're going to, maybe play down. Like, maybe we don't play Gotta Go Bear that series, but, come at us. Like, ISO against us. We're going to make this an ugly, gritty game.
See, in that matchup, the worry I have for the Timberwolves is the Clippers are one of the few teams that can guard their size and feel really good about it without really changing anything they do. Like, if I'm feeling great if I'm putting Kawhi on a guy like Cat. And then obviously you're going to play 5-5. And then it goes down to like, who's winning this war of attrition when it comes to their perimeter scorers? Is it Mike Conley and Anthony Edwards, or is it James Harden and Paul George?
Yeah, I think it's tough because in the NBA, you never know what to take from the regular season. But from the regular season so far, Minnesota has kind of been the thorn in the side of this Clippers team.
Yeah, and traditionally with this Clippers build, that's what we've seen.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest foil in their entire run other than the Nuggets, And even like you think about their matchups against the Mavericks in the past, they struggled to guard Kristaps in those series.
And I think I mean, it's kind of tough,
But it's a different team
Luka's
now.
a 1-of-1, but that's the thing that does scary about this Clippers team is I feel like a lot of the like, we love this team because it's like we're just gonna put Leonard and George on people and call it a day. But it's like, okay, but what happens if Leonard just can't stop the guy?
Yeah.
It kind of breaks the whole defense.
Yeah, it does. But the nice thing about it is you've got a lot of different guys you can throw at him, you know? Like in a Mavericks matchup, like, yeah, you definitely don't want Kawhi guarding Luka 100% of the time, but that's okay because they can throw Paul George at him. He's got plenty of size. You can, I mean, you're not loving this, but like, there's a lot worse things than having James Harden on Luka for a couple possessions. At least he has the strength to deal with that matchup. Even you can blow the cobwebs off of PJ Tucker and throw him in there for a couple possessions as well.
Oh, man.
Free PJ.
Oh, man. If we can get Clippers Mavs again.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be awesome.
All right, number 2, Boston Celtics, or do you have the Nuggets?
I have the Nuggets.
Okay.
I have the Nuggets.
Let's talk Nuggets first.
Okay.
So the Nuggets are currently 12th on offense and defense. So this team actually doesn't have the same statistical case that we've made for a lot of the teams above them. But I don't know, man. They still have the NBA's most unguardable play, the Murray-Jokic pick and roll. Murray, Caldwell Pope, Porter, Gordon, Jokic, the most played lineup in the NBA. It's plus 12.4 per 100 possessions. The bench is a huge concern. They lost Bruce Brown. Peyton Watson's probably not ready yet. Christian Brown has taken a big step back. I just when I look at the Clippers, the Timberwolves, the Mavs especially, the Suns, it's just like Jokic gets the ball 10 feet from the hoop, and the answer is what? It seems like they just have this unsolvable riddle, and I think I just love that for them. That's kind of why I'm picking them. Is like I just don't know what team is going to stop this team.
Yeah, you have them at 1. The
Yeah,
Nuggets?
I have them at 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a really real reason to put them there, and it's just their fit is so much better than any other team in the NBA. We haven't seen like I think they will miss that curveball that they had in Jeff Green lineups. And being able to consistently play 2 bigs at a time in that, like nowadays, they're much more dependent on Aaron Gordon back up 5 minutes. That's going to be their whole playoff kind of thing. And, you know, I think it's a mixed bag with Aaron Gordon. He's such a talented player and he really does play with so much force. But it's just the trickle-down effect of the positional size that they won't have and won't be able to lean back on. But I mean, Nikola Jokic is a freaking workhorse. Like he's going to be playing 42 minutes a game come playoff time.
That's the thing. Jokic has shown he can play big minutes. And the thing with Jokic though is like what I kind of like is if he's going to be playing 44 minutes a game, like every big possession Jokic lineup is crazy positive. Like it really can't be. He's the best player in the world. There's a gap right now between him and number 2, man.
Really,
like the way he affects the game is unparalleled right now.
Their statistical profile between this year and last year are like almost exactly the exact same. On offense, 118.3 points per possession, the exact same as last year. On defense, 114.9 points per possession, which is 0.3 points worse than last season. It's the same team.
It's like when I watch this team in their big games, like when they played the Celtics, it's just like they go to that 2-man game and they don't get stopped and they don't make bad decisions in close games. Like there's no team, if it's a close game, like 3 minutes left between them and another team that I would pick over them.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I feel that. The one team that I did pick over them is the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics have been so dominant this season. They're 43-12. They have the best home record in the league. They are about a game back from having the best road record in the league. First offensive rating, third defensive rating. Really, like, just so much star power on their team. I think Jason Tatum really kind of took a step last postseason, and I wish I could have seen a Game 7 with a healthy Jason Tatum. That guy is just really good. Their starting lineup is super dominant, plus 12 points per 100 possessions, net differential. I don't have enough good things to say about them. The classic thing is the 3-point variance, the 3-point chucking. That's always a worry, but they're a great team. These Boston Celtics.
Honestly, as much as the big hugabaloo about this team has been that way too many threes, like my real issue with this team is I just don't love the way they feel when it's a tie game with 3 minutes left, just because their offense is the like create chaos lineup. It's like kind of that's their whole mantra on offense. Is like we have options at all 5 positions, so you don't know what's coming. But I think that's kind of a problem too when they don't know what's coming. Mm-hmm. And you just see it sometimes in these really, really close games where it's like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. I think
we have so many options. Where do we go?
I think that's the thing. I wish this team could just get better at like some crazy Tatum action that they can just rinse and repeat.
Spam.
And they can definitely get one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what's this team has an option for everything.
They can win in so many different ways.
Yeah.
You want to hear my big red flag?
Yeah.
For the Celtics? Okay, so I just talked about their starting lineup. It's been super dominant. But when you take Kristaps Porzingis off of that lineup and you put Al Horford in,
it's not good.
minus 1.9.
Yeah, Horford's age is showing.
Almost a 14-point net swing. That's a huge problem. And Kristaps Porzingis is not the picture of health throughout his career.
If you're a Celtics fan, what you're really scared of is like Porzingis is like either healthy enough to play but not fully healthy, or he's like missing a couple games, and all of a sudden here comes Giannis, and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Even in a game where if Kristaps gets into foul trouble, which he hasn't had that problem thus far this year, I don't think. Like, just how many minutes can you survive with Al Horford in that place?
Yeah, I mean, Celtics just got to be healthy. And that's all these teams, right? The Clippers, Leonard has to be healthy. The Celtics, they have to be healthy.
The Nuggets, one of those guys in their starting lineup is out.
Yeah, like especially if it's Murray or Jokic. I mean, Jokic, obviously, but I don't think the Nuggets can survive a Murray injury.
I don't think they could survive a Gordon injury.
It would be tough. Yeah. All right. So those are our contenders. So your pick for the title is the Celtics?
Right now, yeah. I gotta lean with the Celtics. I think the path is a lot easier. And they've just been amazing this year.
I'm still rolling with the Nuggets. All right. Hot streak, shooting slump.
Hot streak, shooting slump. How has your week been this week, James?
So I'm on like week 2 of being on a definitive shooting slump, but hot streak attitude.
There we go. That is good merch. We need that merch. Hot streak attitude.
Hot streak attitude, because like, I don't know.
Shooting slump reality.
I was thinking about this morning. I was like, am I in a hot streak or a shooting slump? And I was like, well, my kitchen sink almost fell off and detached from the counter. I haven't found a solution to fix it. My house, it feels like it's falling apart. It's been raining every day this week. But you know what? Like, I don't know. I'm in a good mood. So I'm going to say I'm on a hot streak.
There we go. I've been on a hot streak as well. My life has finally calmed down a little bit. I had a sold out improv show in LA this weekend, which was a complete surprise. Like, you never know if we don't really do pre-sale tickets. So it's just like whoever shows up, and people were standing. It was great. I was loving it. There's no better feeling than that. And then just, had a little bit more downtime, started watching Love is Blind. Absolutely crazy this season. A lot of psychopaths. Highly recommend.
A lot of people talking about AD's body.
Oh my God. One of the girls is named AD, which is really I can never not think of Anthony Davis when they say her name. But pretty good season so far. They're just leaving the pods for me right now. I'm not completely caught up. For those of you that are watching along with me. But just generally a pretty good week. How you feeling, Max?
Slump City over here.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just been rainy. Not a couple of things have fallen through for me that I was excited about. Just not the best week so far. But you know what? I like your hot streak mentality. I'm going to try to adopt that.
Hot streak mentality.
Even
if you have a shooting slump reality.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm optimistic that things will turn around this weekend and next week. But actually, it's a slumpy week for sure.
You know what? The one thing that really could have derailed my week because it's just like annoyed. Oh, this goes back to the insurance check thing I talked about last week. You know, we all know it's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. So these scumbags, I was like, okay, who do I mail this to? They're like, so if you mail it to this address, they'll mail it back to you normal. But if you mail it to this address with a 1-day delivery, they'll 1 day it back to you. I'm like, great, man, that's awesome. So I 1 day it to that address. I'm like, where's my check? Where's my check? So I call them, and the lady's like, no, actually, we always two-day mail it to you. And I was like, so it doesn't matter where I mailed it or how long it took for my mail to get there. They're going to 2-day it back to me no matter what. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, so what the fuck? And she's like, well, you were given misinformation. I'm like, bro, I spoke to 2 separate people who told me that. Like, screw you, Select Portfolio Servicing.
Screw you.
You piece of shit. Yeah, that's my the slump of my week.
That.
I hate them.
I feel like I'm on the precipice of a shooting slump, though, because I'm about to watch the Suns-Mavs game with James tonight. And whenever I watch the Suns with friends, I know they'll disappoint. So we'll see how
I'm excited for this. I feel like this is going to be a very telling game for both teams.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how do the Suns deal with the team that can put a quality big on the floor for 48 minutes? How do the Mavs defend? Is the Mavs spacing real? Tonight will determine that.
Tonight. All the answers. All the answers will be shown tonight.
Yeah. All right, I guess we're going to wrap the episode. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys on Monday. Peace.